Good afternoon, everyone. Or good morning, everyone. Sorry. My name is Dan Scripps, Chair of the Michigan Public Service Commission. I call this meeting of the Commission to order on March 1st, 2024 at 10:05 a.m. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chair Scripps.
Present.
Commissioner Peretick.
Present.
Commissioner Carrion.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Today's meeting is being held in person at the Commission's office at 7109 West Saginaw Highway in Lansing, Michigan. We are also hosting this meeting remotely using Microsoft Teams. It is compatible with all browsers except Safari. Telephone relay service is available through the phone option as well. If you are participating via Microsoft Teams, you may also turn on the live captions by clicking on the More button at the top right of your Teams window, then clicking on Language and Speech from the drop-down menu, and finally clicking on Turn on Live Captions. As indicated in the notice for today's meeting, if we lose the remote connection, the Commission will not recess. The meeting will be recorded and available for future reference on the Commission's website. In addition, the Commissioners can receive comments via mpsc_commissioners@michigan.gov. For reference, this email is also included in today's meeting notice. We will have an opportunity for the public to make comments as provided in the agenda. A few notes about this. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and one per person. If you would like to make verbal comments, you must do so in person or remotely through Microsoft Teams or by calling into the meeting by phone. For individuals attending in person and who want to make a verbal comment, please fill out a comment card. Comment cards are available at the front table there near the podium. For individuals participating remotely by Microsoft Teams and who want to make a verbal comment, you may click on the Raise Hand button at any time to be queued up for comment. For individuals participating remotely by phone and who want to make a verbal comment, you may press *5 at any time to be queued up for comment. Public commenters on both Microsoft Teams and on the phone are added to the same speaker queue and will be called upon in the order they enter the speaker queue. Please do not lower your hand or press *5 again, or you'll be removed from the queue and lose your place in line. To minimize disruptions, attendees participating by Microsoft Teams or by phone will be muted until we reach the time for public comment. The first order of business is approval of the agenda for today's meeting.
I move for the approval of the agenda for today's commission meeting.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve today's agenda. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The agenda is approved. The next item of business on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the February 8, 2024 Commission meeting.
I move for the approval of the minutes from the February 8th, 2024 commission meeting.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the minutes from the February 8, 2024 Commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The Commission meeting minutes of February 8, 2024 are approved. The next item of business on the agenda is the approval of orders on the consent agenda, and today the Commission is assisted by Staff Attorney Lisa Gold. I recognize Ms. Gold.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today's consent agenda consists of 4 communications matters and 2 electric matters. The proposed orders and minute actions for these matters have been thoroughly vetted by the Commission's technical and legal staff and are ready for your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Gold. I move for the approval of the orders and minute actions on the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the orders and minute actions on the consent agenda. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The orders and minute actions on the consent agenda are approved, and I recognize Ms. Gold.
Item 4A1 is case number U-21368, which involves promulgation of rules governing the obligations of providers of basic local exchange service that cease to provide the service. The order before you formally adopts the rules for submission to the Michigan Office of Administrative Hearings and Rules for filing with the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Ms. Gold. I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21368.
I second the motion.
And just before we vote on this, I wanted to thank our staff for their diligence in seeing this through. These local exchange rules would have expired at the end of this month. They typically have an expiration date included in the rules, and so every couple of years we need to repromulgate them to reflect changes that have taken place in the telecommunications industries. And I appreciate staff moving forward to initiate the process and seeing it all the way through the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules process that wrapped up last month and allows us to take the action that we're taking today. So again, appreciate our telecommunications staff for their diligence and focus on these issues, and happy to approve this. Is there any additional discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21368 is approved. I recognize Ms. Gold.
Item 4B1 is case numbers U-12270 et al., which involves a matter on the Commission's own motion directing the Commission staff to collaborate with electric utilities and cooperatives to develop a dedicated form to be used in annual report filings pursuant to the Commission's rules on service quality and reliability standards for distribution systems and MCL 460.731. The order before you closes the dockets in case numbers U-16065 and U-16066.
I move for the approval of the order in case numbers U-12270 et al.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The order in case numbers U-12270 et al. Is approved. I recognize Ms. Gold.
Item 4B2 is case number U-20827, which involves an application filed by DTE Electric Company for approval to reconcile its power supply costs and revenues for 2021 metered jurisdictional sales of electricity. The order before you approves the reconciliation as amended by the order.
I move for the approval of the order in case number U-20827.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by a unanimous vote. The order in case number U-20827 is approved. I recognize Ms. Gold.
Item 4B3 is case number U-21389, which involves an application filed by Consumers Energy Company for authority to increase its rates for the generation and distribution of electricity and for other relief. Staff member Jill Rosnick will describe this order.
Morning, Commissioners. On May 1st, 2023, Consumers Energy filed an application with the Commission to increase its rates, amend its rate schedules and rules governing the distribution and supply of electric energy, and for miscellaneous accounting authority. The rate increase sought in this proceeding is based on the company's projections for investment, expenses, and revenue for a 12-month period ending February 28th, 2025. Consumers Energy's original application requested a $216 million base rate increase that was later reduced to $170.8 million by the company. The company requested a return on common equity of 10.25% with an overall rate of return on total rate base of 6.11% and a 51.5% common equity ratio. The company explained in its application that additional revenues are necessary for costs associated with ongoing maintenance, ongoing investments in generation and distribution assets, ongoing investments related to safety and legal compliance, ongoing investments in enhanced technology, increased operations and maintenance expenditures, and increased financing costs. Intervention was granted to 26 parties, including Commission staff, the Attorney General, and numerous organizations. The record consists of 4,274 pages of transcript and 648 exhibits received into evidence. The Commission also received 15 public comments related to this case. The Commission's order provides guidance on a number of areas, a few highlighted here. In its next General Electric rate case, Consumers Energy shall file an alternatives analysis of the replacement of the Karn Unit 3 cooling tower internal structure, including information on the most cost-efficient solution to this problem and alternatives to full replacement. If the company seeks recovery for work related to the Hardy Dam in its next General Electric rate case, it shall file a full evaluation of all alternative options and pricing for the work that must be done in order to remain in compliance with Federal Energy Regulatory Commission standards and projected total costs. Consumers Energy shall evaluate penetration levels for direct current fast chargers and conduct a load shaping study for direct current fast chargers, as well as level 2 chargers, and evaluate whether it is appropriate for these chargers to have separate tariffs. Consumers Energy shall include the results of this study in its next General Electric rate case. Consumers Energy shall file its transportation electrification plan in case number U-21538, no later than July 1st, 2024. The company shall include in its plan updates of its projections and actual costs of electric vehicle adoption and resulting impacts on its plan. The company shall serve a copy of its transportation electrification plan to the parties to this case. Prior to filing the plan on July 1st, the company shall hold at least 2 public meetings with interested persons regarding the transportation electrification plan. Consumers Energy shall perform a formal optimization analysis of line clearing cycles that accounts for customer costs of outages, the cost of service restoration, and the cost of line clearing, including an evaluation of shorter clearing cycles. The analysis should include issues involving higher contractor costs, added vegetation, and corresponding reliability concerns regarding the proposed 9-year clearing cycle for 4.8 kilovolt circuits. This analysis should be filed by September 1st, 2024, in case number U-20697. Also related to line clearing, Consumers Energy, in its next general electric rate case, shall provide an analysis of the feasibility of more aggressive line clearing in everything outside of the first zone, as discussed in the order. In its next general electric rate case, Consumers Energy shall present detailed information that connects performance and operational metrics to proposed incentive compensation, as individual operational metrics will be scrutinized more critically going forward. In its next general electric rate case, Consumers Energy shall provide a list of pending tax assessment litigation cases and negotiations, an accounting of estimated compared to actual tax assessments for 10 years prior to the filing, and records of any proceeds received. The company's investment recovery mechanism is partially approved. The Commission directs the company to share its distribution investment plans with the Commission and other interested persons, including all intervening parties in the instant case and all intervening parties in the company's most recently filed rate case, as soon as reasonably possible after the date of this order, and for year 2, 4 months prior to March 1st, 2025. Consumers Energy shall implement the grid equity recommendations adopted by the Commission in this order, including 1, the provision of environmental justice and equity-related information, such as reliability metrics and investments in the company's future rate cases and other upcoming applicable proceedings. 2, the development with the Commission staff's input of a clear and repeatable process that allows interested persons to request, safely obtain, and use geographic information system data. 3, the provision of a regression analysis in support of reliability investments in the company's distribution system in future filings. 4, for future company report of contacts reported under Michigan Administrative Code R460.3804 to include not only a person's health status and contact description, but also information on distribution system voltage, whether contact involved a wire down, and whether contact involved overhead or underground distribution infrastructure. 5, for Consumers Energy Company to work with the Commission, Commission staff, other utilities, and other interested persons to begin identifying effective, reasonable, and prudent pathways for energy security to prevent heat-related illnesses and deaths in Michigan. 6, for Consumers Energy Company to propose a pilot where the company works with a third party to provide a resource for medically vulnerable residential customers meeting low-income requirements, to help coordinate and maximize the use of utility, city, state, and federal incentives for the installation of household energy waste reduction, solar, and storage. 7, for Consumers Energy Company to include a full summary of the environmental justice and equity considerations in its next rate case, including a detailed discussion of how proposed environmental changes will both impact customer rates and be implemented on such rates. And 8, for Consumers Energy Company to engage interested and affected customers and communities in meetings and future distribution plans so the needs, wants, and concerns of interested and affected customers and communities can be considered when designing and selecting distribution system program, projects, and sites with subsequent rate case filings, then discussing how the company addressed customer concerns in its program and project justifications where applicable. The order before you adopts a February 9th, 2024 through February 28th, 2025 test year, a jurisdictional rate base of $13,669,075,000, an authorized rate of return on common equity of 9.9%, and an authorized overall rate of return of 5.86%. Consumers Energy is authorized to implement rates that increase its annual electric revenues by $92,009,000 on a jurisdictional basis over the rates approved in the January 19th, 2023 order in case number U-21224. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Rusnak. I move for the approval of the order in case number U-21389.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd first just like to thank all the parties who participated in the case, and a special thanks to the Commission staff for all their work and expertise during these difficult, time-compressed cases. And I'd also like to personally give thanks to our advisor team. Our advisors combed through the issues in this case expertly, developing materials for deliberations and presenting information for commissioner decisions, and answered hundreds of our questions, digging deep into the record and working extra long hours. The order before us is a comprehensive order that covers many different issues, but I want to highlight just a few of the decisions. First, I'd like to emphasize the importance of the investments in this order for increasing reliability of the distribution system. Improving vegetation management, focusing on decreasing the amount of time customers are experiencing outages, and piloting techniques to improve reliability and resilience are of utmost importance. Ensuring these investments go towards measurable improvement is essential. And I'd also like to emphasize the review standard that we're establishing for the investment recovery mechanism, or the IRM, that Ms. Rusnak described. We're temporarily approving 2 years. Well, we're approving 2 years of the investment mechanism, and after these 2 years, we'll be reviewing the measurable outcomes of the program to ensure that concerns raised by interveners to this case are addressed, and whether the benefits of the IRM truly do outweigh the concerns. We're requiring a new filing for the company, the Transportation Electrification Plan. The goal of this separate filing is to allow for much of the planning, review, and discussion around the plan to take place outside of these compressed 10-month rate case processes. With the 4,274 pages of transcript that was described and the 628 exhibits in this case in front of us, it's increasingly more difficult for staff and intervening parties to fully evaluate and weigh in on all of the issues in the time allowed. So I'm hoping that bringing the Transportation Electrification Plan into a separate docket will allow more time for thorough evaluation and analysis for all parties who are involved. The investment approvals will, of course, still take place in a rate case. And finally, I'd like to note that while the approval of the 9.9% ROE and capital structure is maintaining the status quo for this rate case order, with the reduction of utility risk in stable financial environments, high rates of return become harder to justify.
Thank you, Commissioner Paratek. Is there any additional discussion?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Ms. Rusnak, for the great summary of today's order. I'd also like to echo Commissioner Paratek's thanks to our MPSC staff and the numerous interveners who dedicated time, care, and expert knowledge to build a record ready for our review of reasonableness and prudence in support of today's order. I'd actually like to start with a reference to one of the tried and true principles of utility regulation, known as the used and useful doctrine, which actually came up and was named within the record for this case. And that principle requires that assets included in rate base for recovery demonstrate tangible benefits to ratepayers. The ability to determine what is used and useful in turn relies on presentation of reasonable, known, and measurable information. So it's worth considering as we issue an order approving an increase in consumers' electricity customer rates today that we had to navigate frequent disparities between requests for protection from risk and volatility from the company and evidence supporting historical trends of spending or underspending for certain operations designed or purportedly designed for or with unclear links relating specific investments to customer benefits. So in fact, in some exceptions, there was mention from the company on a zealous pursuit for the full amount requested because every dollar spent quickly restoring customers' power translates into shorter outages for customers, and they deserve no less. The trouble here is that the company cannot always or does not always demonstrate how each dollar spent or aimed to spend towards such restoration actually translates into shorter outages. And so these are cases where, without clear and quantifiable or known and measurable benefits to customers, there can be doubt cast on the justification for cost recovery. So it's incumbent upon the company to provide a complete and thorough presentation of evidence to track key metrics in the first place. And this leads me to an especially critical point where the record shows the very indicators used to evaluate employee performance within the company context. And so I will note here that the Commission did find it unreasonable to improve the company's proposed employee incentive compensation performance targets without a greater emphasis to improve reliability, especially when per case record in 2021, the company had the third highest SAIDI in the Census Division and the highest electricity rates compared to peer IOUs. So we do direct the company to provide more detailed information connecting performance and operational metrics to proposed incentive compensation in the next rate case and show sufficient incentive for employees to improve operational performance or system reliability to the benefit of customers. And so I would like to end reflecting on some of the potentially ensuing results of skewed incentives, including disparities in performance among different circuits across infrastructure. So the company's apparent let's say, reluctance to understand cause and effect of variations actually underscores the need for comprehensive root cause analyses to uncover the underlying factors contributing to discrepancies and to leverage what works well. Consumers noted that while for their service area, it's true that densely populated circuits tend to have better reliability. It's not clear why that is a problem that requires additional analysis. And in fact, this need not be a problem and could even represent an opportunity for replicable practices that merit closer study. And so our directives today regarding grid equity and regression analyses aim to shed light on those interacting factors to foster a more transparent and equitable approach to service delivery. As Commissioner Peretick noted, there were also some concerns regarding equity assessments in relation to the investment recovery mechanism we approved today, and these interveners expressed the need for examination of how investments might exacerbate or perpetuate racial or socioeconomic disparities in service delivery. The interveners' inquiries informed the approach we took to evaluate future investment recovery mechanism programs by considering whether the investments were deployed equitably. And as Ms. Rusnak summarized, our order today directs consumers to implement several grid equity recommendations, including a regression analysis with supporting data for future filings to the Commission and a summary of environmental justice and equity considerations in the next rate case with a clear explanation of how environmental justice changes impact customer rates. So we aim today to hold the company accountable in engaging interested and affected customers and communities in future distribution plans, and aim to ensure procedural equity in turn leads to appropriate distributional and structural equity in the maintenance and modernization of our grid.
Thank you, Commissioner Carrion. And I'd also like to offer a few comments on this case as well. First, to echo the thanks expressed by both my colleagues to our staff, both the advisors, the RAD attorneys, the staff in the case, as well as the other intervening parties for presenting us with a robust record on which to base this decision. First, as you would expect, there is, as has been mentioned, a significant focus on reliability in the investments approved in the order before us. Specifically, I want to highlight the order's inclusion of nearly $119 million in funding for line clearing and vegetation management, as well as directing the company to conduct a formal optimization analysis of line clearing cycles to build on this work. In addition, the order approves pre-funding the first year of costs related to a pilot program to relocate overhead distribution lines underground to better understand how this undergrounding compares to other approaches to improving reliability. And there is also increased funding for information technology investments related to managing storm restoration work and significant funding for capital investments, including, as Commissioner Peretick noted, partial approval for the first 2 years of a distribution capital investment recovery mechanism related to baseline investments needed to improve reliability. This is a good thing. Commission continues to be focused across a range of proceedings, investigations, audits, and other efforts to improve the reliability of the utility's distribution systems, and the investments included in this order should provide needed funding to continue to reduce the frequency and duration of outages. I also want to express my appreciation for the work done by consumers on this issue, including everyone in the organization, from line workers to those involved in distribution planning. We certainly still have a long ways to go, but I think the investments here, as well as the work in some of the other proceedings, give us a roadmap to how to get to where we need to be. As part of that effort, however, the Commission strongly encourages consumers to revisit its approach to incentive compensation to ensure that it too reflects this priority on reliability and operational performance. Currently, while not all incentive compensation is included in rates paid for by customers, as Commissioner Carrion noted, just 5% of officer incentive compensation is tied to meeting identified reliability metrics, and even these don't necessarily reflect the level of ambition that we would like to see, while 70% is tied to financial performance. I certainly don't dispute the importance of a financially healthy utility, but when meeting financial metrics counts for 16 times as much as meeting reliability metrics, something is clearly out of whack. And so I encourage the company to take a serious look at its incentive compensation package to ensure that it fully and accurately reflects the priorities of its customers around improved reliability. In addition, the forward test year construct provides certainty for the company in following through on planned investments. In past cases, and in this one, we've wanted to see evidence that the funds would indeed be spent in the way that they were intended, including requiring appropriate sign-off from the responsible corporate official, a full presentation of costs, and to ensure that the evidence suggests that there is, in fact, a clear line of sight between the costs sought for pre-approval and where the investments would be made. Where this evidence has been inadequate, we have denied pre-recovery for some of those costs, which of course does not preclude the ability of the utility to seek recovery for reasonable and prudent capital investments in future cases. However, I want to speak to sort of a larger concern, and that is even where we have seen full evidence and appropriate sign-off, we have not always seen the cost followed through. In service centers, for example, the company spent just a fraction of what had already been collected from customers. And while the Commission is barred from making management decisions on behalf of the company, and indeed believes that some level of flexibility is important, where we see repeated instances where dollars collected in a forward test year environment from customers are not spent on the elements for which they were approved, we believe that this ultimately reflects an abuse of the forward test year construct and would like to see a greater tie between those investments specifically approved for specific projects and the ultimate investments made. And I would note that this is not just a consumer's energy issue, but one that we've also seen from DTE as well. And then finally, I would echo the comments made by Commissioner Paratek around the long-term outlook on the return on equity. It needs to be risk adjusted. In this order, we maintain the 9.90% ROE given the interest rate environment and some continued turbulence around inflation. But as the investments, including through the incentive or the investment recovery mechanism and other elements, along with longer-term certainty around that was provided by the recently enacted legislation, continuing to consider a risk-adjusted ROE will be a priority of the Commission going forward. And with that, I think we're all out of comments. So I will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The order in case number U-21389 is approved. I recognize Ms. Gold. Thanks for your patience.
Item 4B4 is case numbers U-21548 et al., which involve renewable energy cost reconciliation proceedings for the year ended 2023. The order before you establishes docket numbers and sets filing deadlines for each rate-regulated electric provider in Michigan, subject to MCL 460.1049.
Thank you, Ms. Gold. I move for the approval of the order in case numbers U-21548 et al.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? We will now have a vote on the motion to approve the order. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous vote. The order in case numbers U-21548 et al. is approved. We've now reached the time reserved for members of the public to address the commission. As mentioned in the notice for today's meeting, we will take public comments in the following order. First, from individuals attending in person, and then from individuals participating remotely, either through Microsoft Teams or the phone, who have entered the speaker queue. As a reminder, this public comment period is for commissioners to listen to comments and concerns, but not to answer specific questions. When providing comment, please indicate your name and where you live if you're willing to share, so that we have it for our records. And again, please limit comments to one per person and keep them brief, no longer than 3 minutes, so that we have a chance to hear from all who would like to comment. We have one comment card today from Adam Sarzaki. I hope that I got your name right. Welcome back, and I would like to hear from you.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Adam Hotchik. I live in Sterling Heights, Michigan. This is really a follow-up to a previous presentation a previous contact that I made based on a power outage in Sterling Heights for about 15 hours in mid-January. I came here to say that DTE provided a lot of rhetoric, but didn't answer the questions. So I'm coming here with all the information so that I can get maybe one of the commissioners or a legal type person to help me understand, why I can't get a heat map of power restoration, or I can't get anybody at DTE to tell me where my house is in terms of the power map. The other thing I wanted to know is, in all of this information that they sent, the logic here and the spelling is atrocious. It was very interesting to hear your comments on order number 21389 and listening to the information that the consumer power individual provided. That sounds great. If they can accomplish everything that they're trying to accomplish, that would be great. I'm not really familiar with a lot of the terms that you all were talking about: environmental justice and grid equality, incentive compensation, level of ambition. All these things to me, speak of service. That's really what we want. We want, as consumers, we pay a certain amount. I'm not really interested in paying anything less or anything more, and if I have to pay more, fine. But if it comes down to assessing where the tree trimming has to be done, then doggone it, put the people on staff that know how to assess that. Don't come back and say we did a bunch of tree trimmings, and yet give the excuse that a tree trimming was the fault of having 15 hours of power outage at temperatures less than 32 degrees. It's ridiculous. So anyway, I want to have somebody here explain. I'm going to give them the data that DTE gave me, and I want somebody to explain to me, an answer to my question originally back in, late January. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have others in person who would like to provide public comment today? And it doesn't look like we have others queued up in the virtual options. So that will conclude public comment period for today's meeting. Please note that the public may always continue to submit comments to the commissioners via email at mpsc_commissioners.gov. Just one announcement, I think, from me today before we break, and that is that this coming Monday, on March 4th, we will be having a public hearing related to our efforts to implement the recently enacted legislation in Detroit. That public hearing will take place from 6 to 8 o'clock p.m. At the Cass Tech High School. There's additional details on the web, michigan.gov/MPSC. in terms of how to participate, but it's one of a number of public hearings that we'll be holding around the state this year, and particularly one of a number of public hearings related to elements of our legislative implementation activities. This one is broad-based, focusing on the range of orders that we issued at the February 8th meeting around implementation activities. Others will be more narrowly focused on one or another of the specific elements included in the legislation. But we'd love to hear from any who would like to provide comment and participate in the public hearing. And again, that will be this coming Monday from 6 to 8 at Cass Tech in Detroit. Are there any additional announcements today? All right, well, that will conclude today's meeting. The next regular commission meeting is scheduled for Friday, March 15, 2024 at 10 o'clock a.m. Is there a motion to adjourn, Commissioner Pertic?
I move to adjourn today's commission meeting.
I second the motion.
We'll now have a vote on the motion to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries by unanimous vote. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.